5 years ago, she walked away and told me I wasn't enough. I didn't break, I evolved. Now her world is collapsing and she's standing at my door whispering, I was wrong, please help me. But this time, the real question isn't whether I can save her. It's whether I still want to. The first time she told me I wasn't enough, the station's artificial sunrise was flickering. That should have been my warning. Urindor Station liked to pretend it orbited something poetic, a golden binary pair locked in eternal waltz. But in truth, we circled a dull brown dwarf with all the charisma of a burnt marshmallow. The twin suns in the sky were projections cast along the inner shell, carefully calibrated to make diplomats feel inspired and engineers feel underpaid. I was under the hydroponic canopy recalibrating a gravity lattice that had decided, in its infinite wisdom, to tilt 3 degrees to the left. 3 degrees doesn't sound like much until your morning coffee slides off the table and achieves low orbit. Mine was on its second revolution when she arrived. Your beverage appears determined to escape, she said. I caught the cup mid-drift and anchored it to the console with a magnetic strip. It's exploring. We encourage curiosity here. She stood there with that calm, infuriating composure that made admirals straighten their collars. Her skin held that deep emerald tone, smooth and luminous beneath the garden lights, and her long ears curved elegantly through her blonde hair like pale crescents. Most humans stared at the ears first. I had trained myself not to. Mostly, I need to speak with you, she said. Good, I replied. Because if the gravity grid keeps leaning, the tomatoes are going to unionize. She didn't laugh. She rarely laughed before delivering orbital strikes. We walked along the suspended pathways between the garden tiers. Beneath us, vines spiraled around support pylons, leaves whispering as air recyclers sighed overhead. Somewhere, a child shrieked with delight as a pollen drone zipped past. Urindor was a marvel of bioengineering and bureaucratic ego, grown from alloy and algae in equal measure. She stopped near the observation pane where the false suns bled amber across the dome. Her ears tilted slightly back. I'd learned that meant discomfort or irritation or both. I've been selected, she said. For Tomato Union President, I asked. You'd win in a landslide, for the Celestial Accord Diplomatic Corps. I whistled. That's impressive. Congratulations. Do you get a shiny uniform? Please tell me there's a cape. Diplomacy needs more capes. There is no cape. Tragic. She studied me, and for a moment I thought I saw something soften in her expression. Then it hardened again into that polished calm she wore like armor. It requires relocation. Immediate. Of course it does. I leaned against the railing. Below, a cluster of bioluminescent flowers pulsed in soft blues. Which system? Multiple. I will be attached to a mobile envoy vessel. That sounds exhausting and glamorous, exhaustingly glamorous. I will not be returning to Urindor. There it was. The gravity grid in my chest shifted 3 degrees left. Ah, I said lightly. Well, the tomatoes will miss your speeches. She did not smile. I need someone who can move within those circles, she continued. Someone who understands the scale of what we are attempting. The Accord is redefining interspecies governance. Entire civilizations are being integrated. The work demands. Ambition, I finished for her. Yes. The word hung between us like an unshielded reactor core. I see, I said. You are talented, she added quickly. But you are comfortable. I glanced down at my grease-streaked sleeves. Comfortable, that's a new one. Usually I get reckless or please stop insulting the AI. This is not a joke. I know. Her ears dipped further. She looked almost human in that moment, almost. The long curves of cartilage caught the false sunlight, outlining her profile in gold. I care for you, she said. But I cannot tie myself to someone who is content, repairing gravity panels. I considered telling her that gravity panels were the only reason her precious diplomats weren't floating into ventilation shafts. I considered pointing out that someone had to keep the station from tearing itself apart. Instead, I nodded. You need someone who can keep up, I said. Yes. There are moments when the universe compresses into a single syllable. Yes can be one of them. A cargo drone hummed past overhead, oblivious to existential devastation. Well, I said after a beat, when you're negotiating peace between empires that think compromise is a contagious disease, remember to check their reactor grounding. Diplomacy's less impressive when everyone explodes. For a fraction of a second her lips twitched. I will remember, she said. Good. I'd hate for history to note that you were vaporized due to improper wiring. Silence stretched. The artificial suns brightened, simulating optimism. This is goodbye, she said. For now, I corrected automatically. She hesitated. Then she shook her head. For good. I expected something dramatic, a surge of anger, a plea. Instead, what came was an odd clinical clarity. Then I hope you redefine governance, I said. Just try not to redefine me out of existence in the process. I would never. It's fine. I forced a grin. Humans are annoyingly resilient. We pop up everywhere like fungus. That is not reassuring. It shouldn't be. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the faint geometric glow at her temples, biocircuitry interfacing with the station's ambient network. She smelled faintly of ozone and crushed leaves. I am choosing the path that will allow me to become more, she said softly. Then become more, I replied. Her hand brushed mine, light and fleeting. Then she turned and walked away along the suspended path, her long ears slicing through the simulated sunlight as if even the projection parted for her. I stood there until the gravity grid alert chimed in my ear. 3 degrees left had become 5. Of course it has, I muttered. I climbed back into the maintenance crawlspace, tools clanking against the alloy floor. The lattice shimmered before me, a web of force emitters humming at the edge of tolerance. Diagnostic, I ordered. The station AI responded in its smooth contralto. Gravity Sector 12 is experiencing harmonic drift. Cause, structural stress from recent docking maneuvers. Translation. Someone parked a battleship like it was a shopping cart. Clarification. Comparison inaccurate. Work with me. I tightened the field stabilizers, rerouted power through auxiliary conduits, and patched a microfracture with a quick bond sealant that smelled like regret. You appear agitated, the AI observed. Do I? Your heart rate is elevated. Maybe I enjoy cardiovascular exercise. Statistically unlikely. I snorted. You're very judgmental for a cloud of code. Correction. I am distributed quantum architecture. Exactly what a judgmental cloud of code would say. The lattice steadied gradually, the tilt decreasing from 5 degrees to 3, then 2. I focused on the hum of machinery, the tactile certainty of metal and current. Systems made sense. They responded to logic, to pressure applied in the correct places. People were less cooperative. By the time I sealed the panel and climbed back into the garden tier, the artificial suns had shifted toward simulated afternoon. Her shuttle had already undocked. A faint ion trail marked its departure beyond the dome. Trajectory logged, the AI said. I didn't ask. You were looking. Mind your distributed quantum business. I retrieved my now stationary coffee and took a sip. It tasted like burnt determination. New message received, the AI announced. From her, negative from central maintenance. You have been assigned to emergency repair detail on outpost K-47. I laughed short and sharp. Of course I have. Send the coordinates. K-47 orbits a magnetar. Radiation levels are extreme. Survival probability for unshielded personnel is, please don't. Inadvisable. Better. I stared once more at the empty stretch of docking bay visible through the foliage. 5 years is a long time in orbital mechanics. Enough time for stars to shift relative positions. Enough time for a person to change phase. Plot the jump, I said quietly. Confirmed. As I walked toward the transit lift, I felt something unfamiliar settle beneath the ache. Not rage, not despair, pressure. The kind that turns carbon into something sharper. The lift doors closed, and the artificial suns dimmed behind me. flickering slightly as the station recalibrated for evening. This time, I made a note to fix them. Outpost K-47 did not believe in artificial sunrises. It orbited a magnetar that flared like an angry god with a short temper and a grudge against physics. Radiation storms peeled across its surface in violent arcs, twisting spacetime just enough to make navigation computers reconsider their life choices. The outpost itself clung to a safe distance orbit, shield arrays humming at full capacity, hull scarred by years of cosmic tantrums. I arrived on a shuttle that rattled every time the magnetar sneezed. Structural integrity at 93%, the shuttle AI informed me cheerfully. Which means? It means we are technically intact. Define technically. Mostly. Comforting. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic groan. Through the viewport, K-47 looked less like a station and more like a collection of spare parts that had agreed to cooperate out of mutual fear. Panels mismatched. Antennae bent. A large section of hull plating had been replaced with something that looked suspiciously like cargo container siding. I felt oddly at home. Inside, the gravity fluctuated by 0.5% with each magnetic pulse from the star. Not enough to send coffee into orbit, but enough to make your inner ear question its loyalty. A tired-looking supervisor met me at the airlock. She was human, hair-shaved clothes, eyes rimmed red from too many radiation alerts. "You're the engineer?" she asked. Allegedly, she eyed my toolkit. "You don't look like much." "I get that a lot. I'm saving up for a more impressive face." She huffed despite herself. "Main shield lattice is desynchronizing with the magnetar's pulse cycle. We're burning power compensating. At this rate, we'll have to shut down half the habitat ring." "How many people?" 2,000. "Ah," I said, "so just a light inconvenience." She didn't smile. Tough crowd. We moved through narrow corridors vibrating faintly with each stellar flare. Outside the reinforced windows, arcs of violet radiation curled like cosmic serpents. The magnetar pulsed again and the lights flickered. "Shield variance increasing," the station computer announced. "See," I murmured. "Your star is being dramatic." "It's a magnetar," the supervisor snapped. "It can afford drama." In the central control chamber, holographic projections displayed the shield lattice as a web of intersecting fields. Several nodes blinked angry red. I stepped closer, studying the pulse patterns. "You're matching the shield frequency directly to the magnetar's baseline output." "Yes, that's standard. For a normal star, sure, but magnetars don't have baseline. They have mood swings." She crossed her arms. "Are you suggesting we insult it into behaving?" "Tempting, but no. We need to anticipate the pulse before it happens. Shift from reactive to predictive modulation." The computer chimed. "Predictive modeling accuracy currently 48%. "Unacceptable," I said. "That was directed at you," the computer replied. "Good. I respond well to judgment." I interfaced my wrist console with the lattice controls. Data flooded my display: radiation flux, magnetic shear, harmonic drift. 5 years ago, I would have hesitated before overriding a system this large. 5 years ago, I would have wondered if I was qualified. Now I just wondered how stubborn it would be. "Run a Fourier decomposition on the last 50 flare cycles," I said. "Cross-reference with gravitational microlensing distortions." "Processing," the computer intoned. The supervisor leaned in. "You think there's a pattern?" "There's always a pattern. The universe loves repetition. It's lazy." Another pulse struck. The chamber lights dimmed to emergency amber. "Shield integrity at 87%, the computer warned. "See." I told it. Drama. The model resolved gradually, waveforms aligning in a subtle but consistent skew. The magnetar's pulses weren't random. They were slightly phase-shifted by the outpost's own orbital wobble. "You're dancing half a step behind it," I said. "No wonder you're exhausted." I adjusted the lattice parameters, programming a fractional advance, 3 milliseconds ahead of predicted flare peaks. "Implementing," the computer said cautiously. The next pulse hit. The shields flared but steadied. Integrity at 92%, the computer reported. The supervisor stared at the display. That's better. Better is my middle name. Your file says it's Daniel. Files lie. We iterated adjustments through 3 more pulses. Each time, the lattice absorbed the radiation with less strain. Power consumption down 12%, the computer said. The supervisor exhaled for what might have been the first time that week. How did you see that? I shrugged. Gravity panels taught me something. Systems drift when you assume they're stable. You have to account for the lean. She gave me a long look. You volunteer for places like this. Volunteer is a strong word. Let's say I'm allergic to comfort. Outside, the magnetar erupted in a particularly violent flare. Violet arcs slammed against the shield bubble, illuminating the chamber in harsh light. Shield integrity holding at 90%, the computer confirmed. I grinned. See, it just needed someone to keep up. The words slipped out before I could stop them. For a moment the chamber felt quieter despite the cosmic storm outside. You okay? The supervisor asked. Peachy, I replied. Just talking to stars. Over the next weeks, K-47 stabilized. We upgraded the shield algorithms, reinforced structural weak points, and replaced that cargo container hull patch with something less embarrassing. I trained the local techs in predictive modulation, teaching them to read flare cycles like weather patterns. One night cycle, as I floated in the observation ring watching radiation storms ripple across the void, the station computer spoke again. You have received 37 offers for permanent positions at higher-tier facilities. I figured as much. You have declined all. Correct. Analysis indicates upward mobility would increase your income and social standing by approximately 40%. Analysis indicates I don't care. Clarify. I watched a particularly bright flare twist space into shimmering distortion. When a system fails, most people run from it. I prefer to see what it becomes under pressure. Is this metaphorical? Always. A pause, then, incoming transmission from Celestial Accord Relay. My heartbeat skipped once before I could command it not to. Route it to my console, I said evenly. A formal insignia rotated in the air, polished, authoritative. Not her personal code, just the institution she'd chosen. Message content. Request for consultation regarding cross-species infrastructure harmonization, the computer read. I laughed softly. Infrastructure harmonization. Tone analysis. Amused. Very. The request detailed escalating tensions in several integrated systems. Human-built networks were outperforming legacy alien designs, creating political friction. Some factions accused humanity of technological overreach. Overreach, I muttered. We fix your gravity and suddenly we're conquerors. Shall I draft a polite refusal? The computer asked. I considered the violet storms beyond the glass, the way the shield lattice now moved in anticipation rather than fear. Draft a polite acceptance, I said, with footnotes. Footnotes. Citations tend to irritate people who prefer tradition over data. The computer processed this. You are evolving. I prefer optimizing. As the transmission confirmed receipt, I leaned back in the observation seat. The magnetar pulsed again, but the shields flexed smoothly, confident now. 5 years ago, I had watched a shuttle disappear beyond an artificial sky. Now real stars bent around a field I had redesigned. Trajectory change, I murmured to myself. Clarify, the computer said. Nothing, I replied. Just making sure I'm not drifting 3 degrees left anymore. Outside, the magnetar flared, brilliant and furious. Inside, we held steady. Her message did not arrive through official channels. It bypassed the Accord's polished insignias and the ceremonial encryption keys. It came directly to my private relay, wrapped in a stripped-down security protocol that only someone who knew my habits would use. The first line read, I was wrong. I stared at it long enough for K-47's magnetar to flare twice. The station computer cleared its synthetic throat. You have not opened the full transmission. I'm building suspense. Your pulse rate suggests apprehension. Your pulse rate suggests you need a hobby. I do not possess a pulse. Exactly. Another flare rippled across the viewport. The shield lattice flexed smoothly, 3 milliseconds ahead of the magnetar's tantrum. Predictive, prepared, not scrambling, I opened the message. Her face appeared, projected in muted holographic light. The green of her skin looked duller than I remembered, as if exhaustion had sanded down its sheen. Her blonde hair was pulled back loosely, and her long ears were angled low, not in pride, not in irritation, but in something dangerously close to humility. "Daniel," she said, and my name in her voice still had gravity. "I was wrong," she repeated, "and I need your help." I exhaled slowly. "Of course you do." The projection continued. Her homeworld's biosphere stabilization network, an ancient planetary lattice woven through crust and ocean, was destabilizing. Political fractures within the Accord had delayed intervention. Factions on her world resisted human assistance on principle. Meanwhile, atmospheric regulators were misfiring. Oceanic current drivers were desynchronizing. Entire agricultural zones faced collapse within months. "I argued for integration," she said, "for collaboration. I believed I could shift policy from within. Instead, I overestimated my leverage." A faint, humorless smile touched her lips. "It turns out ambition does not grant immunity from consequences." The transmission ended with coordinates. Silence settled in the control chamber. "You are considering," the computer observed. "I am." Risk assessment indicates high political volatility. Probability of professional setback, significant. "Professional setback," I murmured. "That's adorable." Another flare. The shields absorbed it without complaint. 5 years ago I would have gone to prove something, to prove her wrong, to prove myself enough. Now I found myself asking a different question. Who do I want to be when the system fails? "Plot a course," I said. "Confirmed." Destination locked. The journey to her world took 4 jumps and 1 argument with a customs AI that believed my toolkit constituted philosophical contraband. I assured it my philosophy was limited to fixing things that tried to kill people. It seemed unconvinced but allowed passage. Her planet came into view as a sweep of emerald and silver, continents braided with luminous cities grown from crystalline bioarchitecture. 3 moons arced overhead, casting pale halos across the atmosphere. It was beautiful. It was failing. Orbital scans revealed erratic energy spikes beneath the crust, sections of the stabilization lattice misfiring in chaotic cascades. I docked at a diplomatic platform where banners of the Celestial Accord fluttered in carefully simulated breezes. She stood waiting at the end of the docking corridor. For a moment, we simply looked at each other. Time had not erased the familiarity, it had refined it. "You came," she said. "You sounded dramatic," I replied. "I'm weak to drama." Her ears twitched despite herself. "This is not K-47. You cannot simply outpace a magnetar." Disappointing. I brought my best sarcasm. She stepped closer. I could see faint stress lines along her temples where biocircuitry pulsed too brightly. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't thank me yet. I haven't insulted anyone important." She almost laughed. Almost. The planetary core interface chamber lay beneath layers of living crystal and bioluminescent corridors. As we descended, I felt the hum of something vast beneath my feet, a planetary nervous system struggling against its own feedback loops. "The lattice was designed to adapt biologically," she explained. "It learns. It evolves." "Does it also panic?" "It was not intended to." "Everything panics," I said, "even stars." In the central chamber, a column of shimmering energy spiraled upward from the depths, threads of green and gold weaving in unstable patterns. Alien technicians hovered at the periphery, their expressions guarded. One elder stepped forward, eyes narrowing at me. "We did not request human oversight." "Good," I replied pleasantly. "I charge extra for oversight. I'm here for survival." A ripple of disapproval passed through the chamber. She lifted her chin. He is here because our projections indicate total lattice collapse within 90 days. 87, I corrected after glancing at my scanner. You're being optimistic. The elder bristled. I crouched near a crystalline conduit, interfacing my console with the planetary network. Data surged through my display, organic code interlaced with quantum algorithms, elegant and infuriatingly opaque. You built this to self-correct, I murmured, but it's trapped in a feedback loop, political gridlock at a planetary scale. She tilted her head. Explain. It's prioritizing legacy parameters over adaptive inputs. It thinks change is contamination. A heavy silence followed. Can you fix it? She asked. I can try, but it won't be me alone. She understood immediately. Her biocircuitry flared as she stepped into the core interface field. Luminous patterns raced along her green skin, up her long ears, across her temples. She closed her eyes, linking directly with the lattice. I synchronized my console to her neural output. On 3, I said. This is reckless, one technician muttered. Correct, I agreed. 1. Energy surged, rattling the chamber. 2. Her breathing steadied, ears angled forward in fierce concentration. 3. I injected a modular override, an adaptive subroutine designed not to replace the lattice's authority but to broaden its parameters. Not conquest, collaboration. The planetary network resisted, spiking violently. Crystalline conduits cracked. The elder shouted something in a dialect my translator politely declined to repeat. She's overloading, the computer warned in my ear. I know. Her eyes snapped open, glowing bright gold. It fears extinction, she gasped. Then show it evolution, I said. I rerouted power through secondary channels, redistributing strain across non-critical sectors. The override subroutine reframed human-designed adaptability not as foreign intrusion but as auxiliary resilience. The lattice hesitated, then shifted. Energy patterns stabilized incrementally, chaotic spirals smoothing into coherent flow. The violent hum beneath our feet softened into a steady thrum. Collapse probability decreasing, my console reported. 40%, 30, 15. The chamber lights brightened as atmospheric regulators recalibrated across the planet. Her glow dimmed gradually as she disengaged, swaying slightly. I caught her before she hit the crystalline floor. Easy, I murmured. Her eyes focused on me, dazed but lucid. It accepted the change. Told you, I said softly. Everything evolves. Sometimes it just needs a nudge. Around us, technicians scrambled to confirm readings. The elder approached slowly, all replacing suspicion. You did not override us, he said. No, I replied. I updated you. A week later, orbital projections showed stabilized biosphere metrics. Ocean currents realigned. Agricultural zones revived. The Accord, watching from distant systems, adjusted its rhetoric with suspicious speed. Political factions that had resisted human involvement now praised cross-species synergy. I resisted the urge to invoice them for irony. On my final evening planetside, she found me on a balcony overlooking a crystalline city bathed in triple moon light. You could stay, she said. Tempting, I replied. Your stars are less homicidal than mine. Her ears angled forward. 5 years ago, I believed I had to choose ambition over partnership. I thought standing beside you would limit me. And now, I see that you did not remain where I left you. I smiled faintly. I was never stationary, just under construction. She stepped closer. I do not ask from desperation now. I ask because I have learned. I considered the magnetar storms I'd outpaced, the shield lattices I'd redesigned, the offers I'd declined because they smelled too much like validation and too little like purpose. 5 years ago, I would have said yes to prove I could be chosen. Now I answered differently. I won't orbit you, I said gently, and I won't ask you to orbit me. A flicker of understanding crossed her face. But, I continued, if we're moving in the same direction, we can share a trajectory. Her breath caught softly, equal vectors. Exactly, less gravitational drift. For the first time in a long while, she laughed freely, the sound bright beneath the moons. "Humans," she said, "you turn rejection into propulsion." "We're stubborn," I replied, "and mildly ridiculous." She reached for my hand, not in apology, not in pleading, but in mutual choice. Above us, the planetary lattice pulsed steadily, a world no longer afraid of adaptation. Somewhere far away, a magnetar flared uselessly against a shield that had